All right, let's talk about the single most powerful, invisible force that is shaping every single moment of your life. And here's the kicker. You're the one in control. So let's just start with a puzzle. Have you ever really thought about this? How is it possible that two people can be in the exact same place at the exact same time and walk away with two completely different stories, two totally different realities? I mean, think about a concert. For person A, the thundering music, the energy of the crowd, it is an absolute peak experience, the best night of their year. But for person B, who is standing right there next to them, it's a sensory nightmare. It's just way too much. The sound, the lights, the people, they're all identical. So what in the world is going on here? Well, the answer is that every single one of us has this kind of invisible superpower, one we're using all the time, completely on autopilot, without even realizing it. And once you understand how it works, well, it's like getting the cheat codes to your own brain. So this superpower, it actually has a name. In fields like psychology and sociology, it's known as the definition of the situation. So what is it exactly? Well, you can think of it as the invisible hand that filters everything you experience. The big idea here is that what really matters isn't what's objectively happening, but the meaning, the label that you personally assign to it. It's your interpretation that actually creates your reality. And just to be super clear, this isn't some fuzzy concept like a vibe or just being in a good mood. No. This is a well-established foundational rule for how our minds operate. It's one of the basic rules of the game of being human. Okay, so just how real is this definition? Well, it turns out your definition literally becomes your reality. And this brings us to a legendary idea in social science. This is the Thomas Theorem from all the way back in 1928, and it is a game changer. If men define situations as real, they are real in their consequences. Let that sink in for a second. Your brain doesn't really care what's objectively true. It responds to what you tell it is true. Here's a perfect example. You're walking down a dark hallway, you see a coiled shade, and your brain instantly defines that as a snake. What happens? Your heart pounds, adrenaline floods your system, you feel real physical terror. Now, you flip on the light and, oh, it's just a garden hose. But here's the thing. The consequences, that racing heart, that shot of fear, were 100% real. Your definition created a physical reality. And this applies to absolutely everything. Think about a test. It's the same piece of paper for every student. But if you define it as, this is a chance to show what I've learned, the consequence is you feel calm, you feel focused. If you define it as, this test is going to ruin my life, well, the consequence is anxiety and shaking hands. The definition creates the consequence. All right, so if our definitions are that powerful, how do we get a handle on them? How do we change them? Well, think of it like having a remote control for your mind. This skill is called reframing. It's like a picture frame, right? The frame you choose determines what part of the picture you focus on. Reframing is the skill of consciously picking a different frame for a situation, which completely changes what you see and, this is the crucial part, how you feel about it. So here's what's happening in your brain, and it's happening lightning fast. Psychologists call it cognitive appraisal. When anything happens, your mind runs a super quick two-step scan. First, is this thing a threat, a challenge, or a loss? And second, can I handle it? Your answers to those two simple questions set the entire tone for everything that follows. And this skill shows its true power in the most difficult situations imaginable. I mean, think of a family facing a terminal illness. That's an incredible challenge. One frame defines it purely as a devastating loss, and the focus is on fear and grief. But another frame, a conscious choice, can define it as a sacred transition, focusing on the fondness, the love, and the preciousness of the time they have left. They're not denying reality, they're choosing which part of reality to make real. This power to reframe, it becomes most obvious when people are faced with extreme adversity. It's where we see people not just get through it, but actually grow stronger because of it. This quote comes from Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived the horrors of the Nazi concentration camps. He noticed that the people who made it through weren't always the strongest physically, but the ones who could find some kind of meaning, even in that unbelievable suffering. He realized that no matter what happens to you, that's the stimulus, there's always this little gap, this space, before you react. And in that space lies all of your power and all of your freedom. The power to choose your response. That's really the heart of it, isn't it? This is your ultimate freedom. People and circumstances can take away almost everything, but they can never take away your internal power to decide what it all means to you. That is yours and yours alone. Now, we've all heard of post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, but there's a flip side that not as many people talk about: post-traumatic growth, or PTG. This is what can happen when someone successfully uses that little space Frankl was talking about. Seriously, think of it like leveling up after beating the final boss in a video game. Research shows that people who experience post-traumatic growth don't just get back to normal. They often come out the other side with deeper relationships, a new sense of personal strength, a much bigger appreciation for life, and sometimes a whole new sense of purpose. The crisis actually forced them to build a stronger self. Okay, so let's bring this all home. How do you actively use this? How do you stop being a passenger and start being the architect of your own inner world? Here is an incredibly powerful, practical tool you can use today. It's called the observer shift. So instead of getting swallowed up by an emotion and thinking, I am angry, you take a step back and you observe it. You say to yourself, I'm noticing the feeling of anger right now. That tiny shift in language creates just enough space. It separates you from the emotion and puts you back in the driver's seat. When you really boil it all down, it comes to this: your mind is a mirror. The definition you hold up to the world is exactly what you're going to see reflected back at you. If you hold up a frame of fear and scarcity, the world is going to look scary and empty. But if you hold up a frame of challenge and appreciation, the world starts to light up with possibilities. So just remember this: you are writing the story of your own life every single day. And when something big happens, you are the one who gets to write the chapter title. Is this chapter called The Day It All Fell Apart? Or is it called The Day I Discovered How Strong I Really Was? You get to choose. By defining your situations with intention, you are literally, brick by brick, constructing the world you live in. You are the architect of the invisible. So I'll just leave you with this question: what are you building today?